Welcome back. Welcome back to Uncaged Leaders. I'm your host, Mariquita Solis, the Uncaged Heart Coach. This show is dedicated to the successful man who on paper has it all, the career, the house, the financial security, but who knows deep down he's fighting a soul war. He's ready to end the hollow silence of the man box and finally build a life of genuine courage, purpose, and authenticity. So I bring a unique approach built on years of training from the Institute for Women-Centered Coaching, Training, and Leadership. This is combined with my direct social work experience with little boys shutting down their feelings, giving me insight into the exact moment the successful, driven man of today started building those walls. As an empath and a highly sensitive coach, I help men reconnect with the very things they were told to shut down: their vulnerability, compassion, and somatic system. Today, I'm honored to welcome Nat Damon, the founding executive director of Academics, an organization that works closely with K-12 schools to strengthen relationships among students, teachers, staff, parents, and administrators to ensure all members thrive. He also hosts the Reach.Teach.Talk podcast and serves as the founding executive director of Reach Academy for Young Men, which inspires learning and leadership in boys' grades 7 through 10 remotely and in the Los Angeles area. So welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you here, Nat.
I'm so happy to be here, Mariquita. Thank you so much for finding me and reaching out and having the intuition enough to say, hey, this could be a really great conversation about healthy development for boys and young men today.
Well, yes, this is really going to be outstanding because I've been waiting for you to come on here. And so thanks for joining us, Paul. It sounds like you're listening from our ministry here in Kenya. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Please put your questions out there for Nat because we want to know. We want to be here. We're here to help. And this is a challenging topic. So let's get down to it. I'd like to find out, Nat, what about your childhood? What was it like growing up for you as a young boy?
Well, I grew up, my formative years were in the 70s and 80s in the United States outside of Boston. And my father was a teacher and coach, athletics coach, hockey, particularly hockey and baseball. And he taught grades 5 through 7, so ages 11 to 13, language arts, English, social studies, history. And what really stood out to me about my father being a teacher at my school was how much my friends genuinely enjoyed having him as their teacher. And the reason why, it wasn't so much that he was so smart and he had all the content knowledge and he was, that wise sage, but he was more about, he listened and he really understood me. Like even today, one of my closest friends is a former student of my father's from 7th grade. And he still recalls my dad as being one of the very few teachers that he had who was male, first of all. A male teacher is still not necessarily as commonly seen as female, particularly in elementary and middle schools. But also, he presented my dad as a teacher as somebody who was really genuinely curious about the thinking behind the student and how you think, not just what you spouted out. And anyway, I say that because that really stands out to me and kind of my own educational philosophy. And my dad, and this was at a school for boys. This was an all boys school outside of Boston. So for my dad to be known and remembered as a teacher who really listened, who really was curious, who wondered, and also was able to connect is something with boys, is something that I know in no small way informed kind of who I am today and what I've chosen to focus on in my career. Also helping me to focus on my career has been growing up with identical twin younger brothers who they are still, my best friends, and they different personalities, looked very similar growing up, look a little more different today. And both just very much in my life in a supportive role. And so being 3 boys, 3 sons, growing up in a family where we shared an older sister who had special needs, learning disabilities, learning as we would say today, neurological diversity. Definitely on the end of a scale regarding autism, and somebody who presented with love in her heart, and yet also had the reading skills of a kindergartner, right? And yet Lynn is and always will be the glue that kept our family, my brothers and me, together. Because we would always watch out for her, and we would always learn from her. And if she could have a happy day, we knew that we would be able to get beyond our petty problems and have a happy day too. So all that to say, that was my family of origin and how it informs kind of my educational career today.
Well, that's wonderful to hear. It sounds like it was that you had a pretty good family dynamic there. So supportive.
Yeah, supportive. I mean, no family is perfect, of course. Yet, yeah, we supportive definitely, and at the same time, challenging, roughhousing. Not the quietest house on the block. Having three sons, my brothers were just 3 years younger than me, so it's we were pretty close in age. So a lot of ice hockey in the driveway. We'd spray down with a hose in the winter and skate on our driveway or go to the lake. And a lot of good natured competition.
That's fun. I always wanted to be a boy when I was a little girl because I was thinking my brother's having so much fun, right? I was like, why can't I be allowed? Why do I have to wear these dumb dresses?
There we go. Oh my God, already the advantage, right?
I know. I was like, yeah, this is where your role is, right? Yes.
Right.
And yeah, anyway, so
Yes.
um, so what age group of boys do you work with, and what would you say is their biggest barrier to really being expressive in their authenticity?
Yeah, well, I love that you just brought up authenticity. I think that so Reach Academy for Young Men is a summer program that is an institute for boys in the Los Angeles area and remotely as well, that serves the population of boys who are doing well in school. They're middle to high band in their in the learning population, and yet they want something more. They want something more than what they're receiving at their schools. Like, and they go to top schools. The schools are excellent, and this is no ding on the schools, but what they are looking for is more individualized attention. They're looking for pathways where they can really kind of keep going with their curiosity, and also to be in an environment, in a culture that is predicated on boys, on masculine. Everybody who is at Reach Academy identifies as a young male, and and the teachers are all male as well. So to my point earlier about how few male teachers there are in the elementary and the middle school years, particularly in the U.S., what we're trying to do at Reach Academy is to combat that and to actually say, well, here's what happens when you have a community of 10 male teachers with 40 to 50 young male middle school and high school kids. So it's learning, it's leadership, it's positive masculine identity. And to achieve a positive masculine identity, we have discovered that embracing authenticity is just at the center of everything. Boys and girls, teenagers can smell inauthentic adults. Like, they know when their teacher is pretending to know the answer and doesn't, or is just presenting in a way that just isn't true to who they really are. Like, the teenagers don't have the words, or even if they did, they wouldn't necessarily say, I smell a rat, but they would absolutely feel it and know it and feel more distanced as a result. At Reach Academy, what's wonderful is that over the 5 weeks, these boys are watching adult males work with each other, and in so doing, joke with each other, collaborate, disagree, but take on all those kind of identities as a male adult. And these boys are exposed and kind of absorbing these right relationships with their own eyes as they're learning, taking enrolled in courses that really engage boys in learning, both pedagogically and also in the teaching and instructional delivery.
That is amazing because we don't always see the healthy masculine. We will see now. I don't even like this word, alpha males, or the posturing of men. I mean, at a certain level, but when it comes to a deeper level, that we're just staying at surface level, not really getting into those emotions. I don't even want to say deep emotions because sometimes we don't get into any emotions of seeing that. And that is hard for young men and young women. I mean, growing up with a father that didn't really show much emotions is one reason why I didn't feel very connected to my father,
Mhm.
because he was very stoic, and later on in life, yes, I saw some, but yes, it was that prevented me from feeling close.
hmm hmm and it's interesting, right? Because you were talking about posturing, and something that the boys at Reach say again repeatedly is, I can, I can be myself. Like, I don't have to worry about trying to impress the girls, in my class or in my school the way that I do during the 10 months of the year that I'm in school. I don't have to lie to fit in. I don't have to code shift. I don't have to, kind of fit into the man box or the bro, exhibit the bro code behaviors of, I'm cool and I'm tough and I am this and that, which is absolutely just barraging these boys today, as they did back when we were growing up as well. Yet in different media, different modalities today, just this message of, you've got to be this way, you've got to be cool, you got to be tough, and it's really interesting because on the surface, right, top of the surface, like, you think an all male environment would promote that. It would be actually a den of wolves. Like, oh, you're all male, it's going to be this tough bro kind of. But what's so fascinating is it, at least at Reach, it's not. It's like the inverse, um, because they are able to reveal kind of elements of themselves that may be a little less cool or a little less stereotypical masculine behaviors, because there's no girls around. They are they're respected. They're more absorbed into the community, and I mean, it's really mysterious, but also in a way kind of magical to watch this happen. Because again, you would think, get a bunch of boys together, it's a wolf pack, and they're just going to go, hunting for, foraging for scraps, and beating up on the youngest, and the weakest. And instead, with authenticity as our central message, and with authenticity, you break it down, and that's being vulnerable, and it's being expressive and true to who you are, right? It's truth, it's vulnerability, equal authenticity. And to be in an environment where, like, boy, like, you can be the piano player, you can be a singer, you can be just not necessarily kind of atypically masculine. And if you're cool, if you're integrated within yourself, then you're accepted. And that's just how it is. And by the teachers, but also certainly by their peers.
And so the boys that come to Reach Academy, do they find out about it on their own, or is it, no, do they reach out? Do they say to their parents they want to come, or do the parents guide them there, or is it both?
I think there's some guiding going on. I think whether it's parents or teachers or whatnot. We're a young program in Los Angeles. We piloted back in 2021, so it's just five years ago, not even. And we were a post-pandemic response to the fact that in Los Angeles, our students were K through 12 were out of school for 15 months. They had 15 months of their developmental lives where they were not engaging with other kids on a day-to-day basis, with their teachers. And it's just this this treatment of our kids. I'm not protesting political decisions, but I am absolutely looking at the fact that I've heard too many times recently, Mariquita, like, oh, the pandemic was so long ago. Aren't we beyond it now? And we need to keep it we absolutely need to keep it in the forefront of how we work with kids and youth and young adults now. Um, because the ramifications continue. You can't just remove yourself from school for 15 months, be expected to show up, fire up your laptop, look through the screen, burn out your eyes every day for 15 months, and then just get over it when you go back to school. So Reach began as a pilot program. It's just 2 weeks of learning in person, 6 feet apart, still doing the temperature checks, right? Still wearing masks, of course, in the summer of 2021, just to prepare these boys for in-person school in the fall. But the boys liked it. And so we incorporated ourselves as a 501c3 nonprofit, and we did more outreach to the LA community. And we now are a 5-week, very intensive, very intentional program for boys that is not just academic, but very much experiential, very much team building, very much um, uh, exploratory. Our first week, we sent our boys off for 3 days and 2 nights, somewhere remote, very far away from Los Angeles, where they can level set in an environment that's foreign to everybody. So this idea of leaning on each other, which is not necessarily part of the bro code, the idea of relying on each other, supporting each other, is kind of baked into them at the very beginning of our 5 weeks together. So.
Well, that's amazing. So you're building connection, and so what does that look like? Building connection in the tangible ways, and also how is the Reach Academy breaking through these stereotypes that young men have to deal with?
Absolutely, it's such a great question about connection, because it's not just words. You're implying that we're talking about physical connection. We're talking about the idea of space together, sharing space. Just off the top of my head, I'm thinking about how we break down. There's two words that we address with our boys near the beginning of our work together in the summer, which is belonging and mattering. And it has to do with connection, because when you feel a sense of belonging, the environment that you're in kind of conforms to you. Like it embraces you, right? You belong. It's a warm feeling. You're seen. You are of the fabric. Yet I love taking it to a step further when we address mattering, because at Reach, in terms of connection, when you matter, it's one thing to belong and to feel part of the fabric, but if you're not there one day and people notice, like, hey, you know, Jose, I noticed that you weren't at Reach yesterday. So where were you? Are you okay? We missed you. That's because you mattered. There's part of you that has contributed to the sum is greater than the parts. There's part of you that we are essential. We are because you are. And that is mattering. So I bring that up as a way of kind of articulating how we focus on connection at Reach. It's, you belong and you matter, and you connect with us, with everybody in the community, both verbally, but also just by your presence. Um, and structurally, we ensure that every boy has a chance to be heard by the entire community at the end of every day. And they can pass, but what we have is common ground, which is one large circle, including the adults. And we look um, for stories that are based on the theme that is introduced at the beginning of the day. So we come together at the beginning of the day in what's called gathering, and the boys in the community focus on a word, a trait: loyalty, fidelity, gratitude, generosity, charity, benevolence. And the boys are tasked with looking for that theme through the course of the day, so that at common ground, at the end of the day, closing circle, the first question, the first prompt is, hey, who wants to share a moment from today where they saw gratitude in action? And that's the icebreaker. And somebody's bound to say, I saw Tommy, thanking Frank for sticking around after lunch and helping pick up the napkins and the dirty hamburger wrappers, without being asked. Thank him. So that's part of how we communicate. That's how we connect, and that's how we shape the day, so that every boy is seen and has the opportunity to be heard, and matter, every day at Reach.
That's amazing. And how many students are there at Reach?
We had 40 last summer. We had to cap it at 40 because we that was our capacity in terms of our teachers and our faculty. Of those 40, we had 70% return from the summer of 2024, which is a great number for us. I mean, we take that very seriously. The fact that 70% of our boys were returnees, they wanted to come back to this environment. They felt it was significant enough for them that they wanted to do it again and return to us again. And this year, we're going to rise to 50, grades 7 through 10, and we're also introducing a 2-week program that we're calling Discovery, which is for 6th grade boys, maybe 10, maybe 15 total, as a cohort, to get a taste of Reach, to take 2 weeks worth of classes and activities and midday programming, and sometimes with the Reachers, we call them, the grades 7 through 10, and sometimes on their own as a cohort. And that's exciting, because when you're going into 6th grade in Los Angeles, if you're in the public school, you're moving schools. You're moving from elementary to middle school, from 5th to 6th grade. And if you're in private schools, you are K through 6, you're genuinely spending a lot of 6th grade applying to secondary school, grades 7 through 12. So we take both public and private school kids and we'll put them together, and with that in mind, really prepare them for their next step in school.
That's amazing. I love everything you're saying, and the mattering. Someone made me feel like I'm mattered today, right? They said you're a disruptor, right? And instead of just a lot of people will, I mean, they will value me, but really, this was more. I mean, really getting to the core of what you're saying. Mattering is so needed. People see you, but they're it's recognizing at a deeper level, and as young people, I don't even really feel like I mean, we go through life so in such a hurry, right? And to have to actually be seen in that aspect is incredible. So I love these beautiful stories that you're telling me. They're very powerful and life changing, and this is something that is really disruptive because where you're breaking through these stereotypical ideas that we have of young men. So yeah, and let's talk about some of them. I mean, the idea that vulnerability and humility are weaknesses. So how are you all flipping the script? And when the boys come to you, do they come to you already thinking, I can't be vulnerable, or I've been taught already? How does that show up?
That's such a great question about how we teach vulnerability, right? Or how we educate about vulnerability without hitting them over the head with this is what
Yeah.
it is to be vulnerable, and this is why it's good for you, and unlearn what you've learned your whole life about being vulnerability as a weakness. Um, it's really, I love it because you can't talk about vulnerability without talking about strength, and strength is critical, right? And we think about growing up, boys to men, get stronger, get tougher, get harder, all that. Like the be strong, strength is it. Yet we talk, but with vulnerability, the way we introduce it is we talk about the word courage, and the word courage has the root core, um,
Yes.
core being heart, right? And you know this. I mean, this is a French root. It's Anglo-Saxon. It's so what courage is really heart strength, and that's conviction, right? And if you are strong in heart, then you've got the strength down. You can be somebody who has never really exercised his biceps. You may be somebody who is far from a six pack as possible. But if you are strong in your conviction, and if you're showing the heart strength, the courage, then you are strong enough. You are more. You are stronger than the weightlifter, than the power lifter. You are stronger than the quarterback, because you are truly operating from your core, from your heart. So we talk about, and not when I say talk about, I don't mean to say like we lecture on this. It's more just the culture, the mission, the core values at Reach. Just they embrace conversations about and actions toward courage, vulnerability, vulnerability as strength, connection, teamwork, collaboration. So so when we then talk about vulnerability, it's like, yeah, if you're aligned on the inside, and if your core is solid, then you know you can start opening up, you can start taking risks, and you can start being the man that you want to be, as somebody who has got both feet on the ground and unafraid to 12 angry men, right? Unafraid to raise to be the one person to stand out and to raise the question that nobody's asking, or the upstander who is watching the mob and saying, wait, this doesn't land with me, there's something that's not tracking here, about this group think. And to have that thinking outside the box is such a critical skill. And it can really only come when you're feeling comfortable within yourself. So what Reach is trying to do is create this culture where that's optimal, where you can be vulnerable, you can ask questions, you can express wonder and curiosity, and certainly not be mocked for it. And in fact, find that the adults, the teachers, respond to that very positively. And your peers will over time feel like, oh, that's cool. Like that's a really interesting way of looking at the world or looking at this question. So let's embrace it, and let's explore that together.
Yeah, and this is so important because as they become adults, I mean, they have to, in order to connect with others, you have to connect from your heart. I mean, your heart is the connector. So do they talk about um, relationships with young women, or dating, and not necessarily women, but I mean, dating relationships and struggles in that aspect?
We do. We not in a formal way. We don't have a class on like,
Mhm.
um, relationships with girls or young
Yeah.
women or whatever type of relationship, platonic or romantic or whatnot. But uh, more and more, I'm finding that the boys are are really looking for guidance on how to relate to girls in a way that's not what's being thrown at them in the on TikTok and on the social media feeds, because really so much of what they're getting there is like, it's not a treatment of women that is healthy, to say the least. And even if it's not directly about the, looking at influencers and what they're saying about how to be with women, it's the the access to pornography, the access to visual stimulation that we know is having an effect on um, just how women are treated by young men, so or by men. So what we again we don't offer a course in like how to be a true gentleman with the opposite sex, but we have had I can think of a handful of examples where in common ground at the end of the day we have had a boy bring up something that he's ashamed of, a situation that involved a girl that he is just can't stop thinking about because he knows something went wrong, but he is so ashamed. And and that I think is where we can be also very valuable, because um, this idea of shame and being shamed and shaming others who appear weaker um, is something that so many boys and young men carry with them. And so when I think about how we teach relationships with women, what we're, if anything, I think our success is in uh, our relationships with ourselves, and being able to externalize our feeling of shame on something we did, a mistake we made, um, that may not even be a big deal, but to them it's egregious. It's the first time that they were ethically challenged, or their conscience is just not letting it go, and they can either kind of steep in that toxicity um, alone, or they can express, open up about it in a supportive environment of peers who are not going to mock and certainly not going to um, uh, betray the confidentiality aspect of it.
Yes, that's so important to have that supportive, safe space where
Yeah.
you can open up. And I worked with little boys in a residential treatment center, and they had a lot of behavioral issues. And the parents, now I'm not blaming the parents. They were afraid of the little boys. These were
Hmm.
5-year-olds and 6-year-olds, and it was very. They were very intelligent. Some of them very highly educated. I mean, very intelligent little 5-year-olds, but they had they. I mean, emotional outbursts. I mean, that was the way they expressed themselves, is through anger, and they had a very hard time regulating themselves, and a lot of the kids had the um, attachment disorders, where they weren't trusting of adults, they weren't trusting of anyone. And how would Reach Academy help those little boys, that they're so angry? And because that's okay as a man to be angry. Now they say you men are not emotional, but men are emotional because they get angry. That is not, like, society doesn't really count that. If I started crying right here, they would say, "Well, she had a breakdown. She cried. She
Hmm.
broke down on the set. What a basket case." And it would be worse if you did it. So,
Right. As a man, exactly.
yeah. But if when men get angry, that's okay. That's acceptable. So yeah, I don't even know what I'm asking. I'm just
Well, you're observing, right? The
yeah.
stereotypes there, and we're talking young age, like 4 or 5 years old, where boys become boys. There's a wonderful professor named Judy Chu who has a book with that title, When Boys Become Boys, and she's at Stanford, and she really has focused her research and her career as a professor on this stage of life for boys when they move from singing out loud and being physical and loving and just being expressive when they're 2, 3, 4 years old, to suddenly, like, it just like a light switch, the peer influence sets in, and they don't want to be the last kid called out to play on the kickball team. They don't want to be, they've got to be tough, and they've got to learn the language, and it's so hard because they all go into it like learning through the hard knocks, the rejection, the ostracism, and then finally making that choice. Do I conform? And perhaps by conforming to this box of behavior, by conforming, how much of myself, my true self, do I sacrifice, right? Or do I stay true to myself, courage, and kind of exist that way? And that's such a, that's such a hard decision to make, and they're not making it consciously, but they are doing it, right? That's part of the socialization that boys undergo. And when it comes to anger, I mean, I think that, anger is interesting. Hot temperedness is interesting because, we work with middle school and high school boys and young men. And that flash temper is could also be an indication of depression. It can also be an indication of a real sense of something's wrong, like mental health, right? Like when boys are depressed, it often presents in a way of the trigger temper and or impulse control issues, or just anger, as you said, like outbursts that are just above and beyond what the situation calls for. So it's at Reach, we don't deny anger. We accept the fact that anger is a natural expression of frustration meets confusion. And so what do you do with that? How do you channel that anger? How do you express it in a way that's not going to escalate, and it's not going to involve somebody else and become contentious, or, God forbid, physical or harmful, or traumatic? So Michael Gurian is another boys psychologist who has spent his whole career talking about and really looking at brain studies of boys and girls and learning, and how you can apply these brain studies, apply them to boys and girls learning. And what he's really learned is like the expression of boys, the outward presentation of again, depression or anxiety or isolation on boys it comes out much more in anger and temper than with girls, which is more crying and more, kind of just sad affect. So
That's very interesting. Yes, and I've seen it in men as well. The emotional dysregulation, and I mean, underneath that is the sadness and the depression and the loneliness,
yeah,
which is, yes, and then it might drive people away even more because people don't recognize that.
right. That's right. That's right. And at Reach, we just say, hey, look, you are part of us. You are a Reacher. You are part of our community, and we're not going to let you go if you're having a bad day or if you're frustrated, or sad or angry. Yet, let's address how you release that. Let's address how you can hold that anger and transform it into something generative, something again, not threatening and not negative, even if you can say that about anger.
Yes, right. Welcoming everything and learning from it and transforming it. That's beautiful. And that's what we need to do. We just, because we're human beings, when we deny our humanity, then we try to put it in these boxes and try to shove down the anger, shove down this. And that's when it becomes poison.
Yeah,
And it's coming out.
Yes. And it will come out, right? We know this. It will come out. But so much of this, I mean, getting back to the original kind of idea of how environment impacts growth, and this idea, like I had a kid respond to a survey. How did Reach impact you this summer? And he just said, I know that I've grown more in these 5 weeks than I did in 10 months of school. I feel myself growing, and he wasn't the only one. And so what is it about the environment that we shape at Reach Academy for Young Men? What is it about that environment that not only has them coming back after 11 months, to us, but also has them feeling that they are growing into the man that they want, that they're aspiring to be. And that is all cultural. That is all what we are doing to foster an environment that really challenges the narrow definition of being a man, which I grew up under, right? Um, and and actually looks at, understands it, and builds on that. It's like broadening as opposed to deepening or codifying this book.
Yeah, and what you're teaching these young men so early on is about personal growth and keeping on moving up, because so many times people are not growing, they just stop.
Yeah.
And so becoming aware of who I am as a person, and realizing I don't have to be capped off here.
Yeah.
That right. And if I have that supportive community like Reach Academy, then I mean, that's going to propel my growth, because I'm going to be able to talk about these things and not shove them down. And so, yeah, there's so much to unpack here. And now we have a comment here from Paul, and he says, this is a great topic to transform and create a difference through education. Please pray for us, especially the call we have in taking care of the vulnerable orphans under our care. Teaching and learning process has not been effective due to the lack of school funds and being sent home frequently, which is affecting the effective learning process.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I mean, that's why, again, environment, and thank you, Paul, for everything you're doing. Environment is so crucial.
Yes.
That for learning, and I mean, and that's why I have a friend that's in prison for murder, and I'm not one to judge him. I mean, what happened to him? I mean, that explosive anger, getting caught in a bad situation, making bad decisions. I'm just thankful it wasn't me, because, I mean, I'm thankful that I had what I needed to be where I am today, because some people don't have the support that they need, like Reach Academy. And this is changing lives, and making sure that our boys don't end up in prison and hurting others and hurting themselves. I mean, my friend can't forgive himself, and that breaks my heart. So yes, we're all humans. We all make mistakes. Some make bigger mistakes than others. And I think I'm not here to judge anyone. So I'm just thankful of this compassionate foundation that you all have at Reach Academy, where everything is allowed to be expressed.
Everything's allowed to be expressed. And again, like, these boys they apply to Reach. They are, as I said before, like, they're middle to high band of students. We are not a behavioral focused at the center program, because we don't have the capacity. We don't have caseworkers, social workers, therapists with us, counselors. So it is really focused on the learning and the leadership and the masculine identity. Yet that being said, everything you're sharing here, Mariquita, about the social and affective growth in these boys applies to our boys too. The intensity of growing up today is so sharp-edged and pervasive and persistent that, honestly, if I break it down to what makes Reach Academy effective for our boys, it's an offset to that intensity. The intensity is what you put into your learning. It's what you put into your work with each other. It's what you put into the collaborative projects that we have designed for these boys to work together to achieve, to get that feeling of being part of a team, and that feeling of accomplishment that comes with being part of a team that has completed a project, right, to the best of their ability. So we leave ourselves open for those moments of transformation. And something that I've thought about when you were talking about your friend, it sounds cliche, but it really does only take one person to say one thing to you at one time that can change your life, because it could change what it could do is change the way you look at yourself. And one of the most amazing things I see taking place at Reach that is absolutely, I think, replicable in other communities that are as intentionally developed to bring out the best in people, is this holding the mirror to a boy, not just showing who he is today, but if you have a teacher, an adult who says, you know what, this is how I see you 5 years from now. And if that is a version of yourself that is heightened, that could go, that means so much, that could transform a boy. And that's what our teachers know at Reach is like, we're in a community where this could happen more frequently than it does in the rush, the intensity of school life, real life. So that's where I think Reach's potential is realized, is in this community where you're not just seen and you matter, yet you're also believed in, right? And not just by your peers, but imagine having an adult who's like 25 years older than you saying to you, hey, you're 15, and man, if I had this talent when I was 15, if I had this trait that you possess, what trait? What are you talking about? Have you ever noticed how you listen to people and how you remember what people say or do? No, not really. I mean, it's just who I am. Yeah, that's who you are. You are an individual. You are somebody who I am not. And I respect you for having this trait that I don't have. And I hope you build on it. And this is how I see it. So like, that's the community. That's the culture.
Yes, and that is so powerful. And you're right. Just one thing can turn someone's life around. And
Yeah.
people are so hungry for that right now. People are so hungry. Yes. And well, let me just ask you this. Well, let's talk about not being able to express emotion as young men. Is it okay to hug? How, I mean, they're under all these restraints, and you can hug in sports, right? And you can, that's okay, but not, don't hug another man, because then you're going to be, you know.
Right. Right. And kind of this reminds me of earlier in our conversation how I was noticing like it's not a wolf pack and I get boys together and it's always going to be this like, dark energy. It's actually honestly the hugging is part of the it's part of what you see it's just boys hugging boys like, hey, blah, love you, man, like blah. Like there's so much more expression. And it's wonderful. I mean, it's so genuine, and that gets back to authenticity. It's just and wow, like if you have boys who who at Reach are feeling like I'm gonna give you a hug, man, you're awesome, like that's just cool. And that doesn't happen nearly as predictably when you have girls in the opposite sex, and just or if you're in the real world of school and life.
Right. It doesn't. I went to an all girls school, so I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah,
People would
right.
feel sorry for me, but no, I love that part of it. I mean, the being able to be without having to doll up all the time, or, being
Yeah.
afraid or putting on a mask. But, one thing that's so important that you're teaching here is this. I mean, so many times we're like, okay, I'm independent. I don't need anybody. I can do it all by myself, right? I don't need a man. And men don't need anyone, right? And it's so isolating. Now, it's wonderful to be able to stand on my own where I can pay my bills. But to say that I don't need anyone, and then I've talked to men that say I don't want to date this independent, hyper independent woman, right? They don't want that, or and that I don't. How do we come together if everyone's saying I don't need anyone else?
That's a great question. I mean, men want to feel needed. I want to help you. That's a natural instinct, right? I want to help. Let me solve this for you. And one of the kind of stereotypical heteronormative couples where the wife is frustrated because she's like, I just want to be heard. I just want empathy. I just want like you to nod in agreement that like that really sucked. But the man is like, how can I fix it? Like, let me fix it. Like, let me go to that mechanic and get your car done, or let me do it myself. Right. And just that's, again, everybody loves Raymond, like that. That's it. That's the whole thing, the whole premise. But But when we think about what boys need and what boys are craving, it's, it is a sense of I can do this. It is absolutely a sense of agency, that they want to feel, and capability, right? Like girls too. And yet culture, society, like it's the rugged individualist. Like you are a man, like you are walking this world, and you're going to change the world, and you're going to shape it, and you're going to crush it, and you're going to blah. And that I'm not, I guess I'm mocking it, that, but I'm presenting like I'm mocking it, but I'm really, there's some truth in that. Like there's something that boys want and young men want, is to feel that sense of capability. Totally great. That's totally great. Yet the messaging also, though, of being part of a fraternity, the idea that no man is an island, the idea that, you've got to lean on each other. You've got to be there for each other. You got to show up. Those are all traits that the boys get. Like they want that. Like they would nod right now if we were in a common ground and we were talking about the value of showing up. They get it. Like that's super important to them, because they all have experience when somebody hasn't shown up for them, and they've all been in situations where it's just, I do need help, and in a sense, I shouldn't have to say that. Like, hopefully, ideally, somebody would notice I need help on something, show up with me, because I would hope to do the same for you. That's fidelity, right?
Yes, exactly. So when you're talking about this, this reminds me again about leadership and what is a real leader, in the world today. We have so many different types of leaders, and I feel like many times we're going down the wrong path of what a leader looks like. So, what would you define a leader as?
It's interesting. I'm thinking about this might not be, totally intuitive, but the idea of what a leader is reminds me of conversations that we have with the boys about what is it to be cool? Like, why are you cool? Why is this person cool? Is it the strongest, the quarterback, or is it the funniest or the loudest? Like, what is the cool kid? Like, why is he cool? And cool is euphemism, I think, for, in large cases, for leadership, like for being a leader, like somebody I want to be around. I want to be around this person. And what the boys say is generally like, I want to be around this person because he makes me feel comfortable. I feel comfortable around him because, and then if they really peel it apart, because he's being authentic to himself. Like he's like, this is who I am, and I'm presenting truly who I am. And that's something that we can intuit deeply. And we know when we feel it, kind of getting back to what we said earlier about the teacher who's not being authentic, who is pretending and posturing, or the boys when they're in a co-ed environment who are posturing. The cool ones are the ones who are communicating, conveying that they're not posturing. They are just, I love, the dark arts, or I love Dungeons and Dragons, or I love, the 49ers, or I love Bach, so cantatas like that. Wow, that's cool. Like, Reach will definitely be curious about that. So that connects to leadership, because leadership, you're right. Like there's so many different types of leaders, and we expose the boys to different ones. The ones that come to mind for me are the shepherd leader, the leader who can lead from behind, kind of surveys a landscape and it nudges and gently, it's kind of guiding the oil tanker. But with heart and with quiet. We talk about the servant leader, the one who's there to help, right? Let me help you. There's also, I love giving the example of the conductor in an orchestra who, is the only member of the orchestra who doesn't make a sound is the conductor, and she or he is the leader, of course, bar none, and yet doesn't make a sound. So I love throwing those examples and hearing them, what the boys say about how they can be leaders without necessarily being the loudest, the biggest, the one who's swinging himself around as I'm on the top of the pyramid here, and I'm going to utilize that rarefied position as a way to keep others underneath me, as a way to suppress or oppress others, and just make sure that I'm ahead, to make sure that I am, quote unquote, the leader. We also, one last thing I'm thinking about with leadership is we talk about titles versus leaders, and we talk about people who hold titles, and on teams or in companies or whatnot, and really who are the real leaders when you come to these organizations, and oftentimes it might not be the CEO. It might be actually the the middle manager who it demonstrates on a daily basis what leadership really is, among her or his, or their, colleagues. And those are the traits that we are emulating at Reach.
Yes, and what you're saying is, I mean, that I see is that all we need all team members. So it's
Yes,
not just and they're leaders in all parts of the team. We can't
totally.
have that. And that's again getting away from this I don't need anyone, but coming together. And that is so important.
Yeah.
So I want to ask, I know that the short man and we have these physical things that can be very challenging for young men. How do you deal with that? I mean, the shame of being short, which is ridiculous. You know,
Hmm.
you know, I mean, I've heard people say, "Well, I'm lucky that I'm tall," and I
Yeah.
think, gosh, if women are judging on that, what's going on here? Because
Yeah.
we're not
Yeah.
judging on the human again. How do boys
Yeah.
deal with that?
Yeah, no, that's wow, that's a whole topic. I mean, it's always been the case, right? Like the bigger, the taller,
Oh yeah.
shorter person wishing they were taller because it just feels like life is easier for them, even though we all know by a certain point in our lives that everybody has a cross to bear. And the 6'2", six-figure earner, has anxieties and demons and regrets and all that. But those are lessons that come with age, and we're talking about boys and young men, and boy, when you're talking about influencers and you're talking about you know what's conveyed to them these days about what's important for online datings, swipe right, swipe left, like what women and girls are looking for, so they say, is the six figure, the 6 foot, um, plus, man, and the protector in that way, or however you want to break it down, like, archetypally. But uh, it really, it's a really good question because physicality has become more and more kind of, spotlit, and when it comes to boys, and in a way that it's always been with girls. And so you have boys going to extreme measures to lose weight and to build muscle and to shape their faces so that they have cheekbones and they've got like jaw lines and they've got, this they will present as this, Adonis, for lack of a better analogy. But really, like, I think what really pervades the pervasive message, at Reach, is, just like, being loved for who you are from the inside out, and knowing that you know there's not one type for everybody. And when you're looking at wanting to build long relationships, or with women or whoever, with just loving relationships with a partner, it's there's diminishing returns after a certain point, if you're focusing strictly on the external. What is intrinsic motivation? What is uh, external validation? What does internal validation mean? And why is that actually at the root of, agency and self-love and strength?
Yes, because you're building up their core, and that's
Mhm.
essential, their
Excellent.
foundation.
Excellent.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's the only way that someone's gonna make it in the world because,
Yes.
I mean, I spent decades hating myself, and, I mean, that's the only reason I'm here now where I am is because I was able to have that transformation. But,
Yes.
yes, it was because my core I really wasn't taught as a young girl what really mattered, right? I was and it's not my parents' fault. I mean, for me, it was religion matters if you're if you believe this religion then you're going to be okay,
Yes.
but that left out all the relational and the self-love and everything. So yes, and what you're doing is getting back to the core foundation of knowing that everyone matters here and that expressiveness is perfectly fine and more than welcome. It's wonderful. So, and this is what's going to help these young boys in relationships with their partners because if they don't have that, then divorce, right? And they're going to look for the wrong things. They're going to be looking for the physical um, attributes instead of the emotional attributes to bond. I mean, it beauty doesn't last forever.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's ephemeral. It's a big word, boys, but there's a word called ephemeral. Let's talk about it. It doesn't last forever. Everything is ephemeral. And, but really, and this leads to what you were saying earlier about kind of this idea of what really matters coming from the core. And if you're developing from the inside out, then the legacy you leave behind, there's a higher likelihood that it is a positive, benevolent legacy because you were truly integrated in the inside. And you presented, therefore, as more stoic, more strong, more clear in your convictions, i.e., your integrity. And that's another, by the way, another topic that we really, really center on at Reach is integrity. What is integrity? What does it mean? How does that show itself in friendship or in fraternity?
Right. And if you have integrity, I mean, you're not isolated. You're seeing the world as interconnected because you're
Yes.
being integrous to all living beings. And that is what we need here, especially in this time. So
I love that, by the way. I love your interpretation and definition of integrity. That's perfect. The integration of all. And you're integrating as somebody with integrity, you're looking at the connections, getting back to connection, right? You're putting a primacy on the connections as opposed to how I am going to make an impact on this group.
yes, yes. And I love all of this. So I see that we're coming down to the final minutes here. But so tell us your final words, and also make sure to tell us where people can learn about Reach Academy and where you are online, where they can connect with you.
Thank you. Oh, thanks for this opportunity. Yeah, thank you. We're Reach Academy for young men. We're in Los Angeles. We have a beautiful campus that's thanks to a school called the Curtis School up in LA in the hills. And it is a beautiful 27-acre campus, which gives our boys room to roam and explore. And you do the walk and talks. You got this, pick up soccer. You got funny games that they invent themselves. It's a great campus. Excellent, also science labs, robotics. We've got the academic classes as well. The facilities are bar none fantastic at Curtis School. Our website is I realized after we chose the name Reach Academy that there are several Reach Academies in the United States. Our website is unique. It's called reachyoungmen.org. So Reach Young Men. Reach them, reachyoungmen.org. And that is our website. And you can learn everything about our program and also our new discovery program for young kids, like rising sixth graders.
Well, my heart is very touched by everything you're doing, Nat. And I'm really appreciative for everyone that's watching here and on the replay. Please share this out and please subscribe because our young men need as much support as they can get. These are, I mean, the world can be cruel and they're beautiful, and we want them to know that they they are inspiring us. They are this beautiful, the next wave, right? And they have what it takes. So it's our duty to see their beauty and call it out and to hold a safe space. So thank you so much, Nat, for everything you're doing. Like I said, my heart is very touched.
Thank you. So is mine, Mariquita. This has just been a wonderful, wonderful hour of conversation about the impact of culture and community on boys and young men, and how valuable this experience of being among your gender, for lack of a better word. It feels like more than that for some reason, but truly like this community where you can truly explore who you are at the same time you're exploring academics and opportunities, programmatic opportunities that are fun, really fun, and also the educative. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And thanks everybody for watching. Please go definitely check out Reach Academy, and then I'll see y'all next week. So bye everyone. Thank you.